This podcast is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Fiscally responsible, financial geniuses, monetary magicians. These are things people say about drivers who switch their car insurance to Progressive and save hundreds. Visit Progressive.com to see if you could save. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states or situations. I'm going to start the show by playing some 10-year-old video. But stick with me, because I promise, it pays off.
Welcome to CPAC 2015, everybody. This is a packed room.
We're at a Maryland convention center. It's February 2015. And one would-be presidential candidate after another is looking to connect with the GOP faithful.
So without further ado, our next guest, love him or hate him, you watching, Donald Trump.
This introduction says so much, because no one here thinks Donald Trump has a fighting chance. You can hear it. It's such early days that Trump ends his 10-minute speech by introducing his tagline.
And my whole concept is make America great again. We can do it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. And now we have Sean Hannity. Where's Sean? Come on, Sean.
Eventually, Fox News' Sean Hannity joins Trump on stage.
Give it up for Mr. Donald Trump. You all doing okay?
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
They run through a lightning round about hot-button issues, stuff like abortion, gay marriage, legalizing marijuana. And then Hannity starts asking about people. Hillary Clinton, her husband, Bill.
Bill Clinton.
Nice guy. Got a lot of problems coming up, in my opinion, with the famous island with Jeffrey Epstein. A lot of problems.
The audience does not seem to know what to make of this. When Trump rants about Obama being incompetent, they go wild. But Jeffrey Epstein and some island, it's crickets in there. Honestly, it's a testament to President Trump that a decade later, so many more of us know Jeffrey Epstein's name.
Donald Trump, I believe, brought it up wielded as a cudgel against Hillary Clinton to imply that Bill Clinton was nefariously involved with Jeffrey Epstein and that this would become a problem if she became elected president.
Political analyst Brian Beutler says this is right around when he started thinking about Jeffrey Epstein, too. This is such a Trumpian feint because there's like picture after picture of Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein together, and then somehow he uses that, he like folds it into an origami shape and is like, actually, because I know him, I can tell you all the dirt, you know?
There's a chutzpah there that you see him wield sometimes in ways that I think you would think of as normal politics, like in his first campaign when he talked about how he understood the corruption of the system because he participated in it, but now I'm here to set things right. And then in other ways, he just has a tendency to take what is essentially true about him and turn it around and say, no, it's actually my opponents who did the bad thing.
By now, you probably know the ins and outs of Jeffrey Epstein's story, how he trafficked women and girls, used them for sex. Over the years, that basic narrative has been supplemented with one conspiracy theory after another. Theories that look to explain Epstein's power. There's the theory that Epstein was an Israeli intelligence agent, that Epstein was blackmailing powerful men who shared his taste for illegal sex, and even kept a client list of the people paying him off. Then there are the theories about how Epstein died in jail while awaiting trial for sex trafficking back in 2019.
I guess part of the reason why the circumstances of his death, I think, was the thing that catapulted the Epstein conspiracy theories into something that kind of normal people or people who don't pay close attention to politics started paying attention.
Why do you say that?
Well, because it wasn't just right-wing people who had questions about this. There was a more generalized conspiracy theory that, this guy is powerful. He's donated to politicians. And then when he first got caught up in a pedophilia investigation, a sex trafficking investigation, it would be better to just make this go away.
The last month has been a wild ride for any casual observer of this saga. At the beginning of July, the FBI and DOJ released a memo that seemed to systemically shut down one conspiracy after another. There was no client list, the memo said, no evidence of blackmail. Oh, and Jeffrey Epstein did kill himself. The administration even released a video that supported the suicide claim, they said, but some crucial minutes were mysteriously missing. And when the president's cabinet faced questions about all this, Trump himself sounded, defensive.
Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? This guy's been talked about for years.
This is so different than 10 years ago at CPAC, right?
Do you want to waste the time, and do you feel like answering?
I don't mind answering.
I mean, I can't believe you're asking a question on Epstein at a time like this where we're having some of the great...
Can you sum up what the last couple of weeks have been like in MAGA land?
Putting myself into MAGA land, I think it is their experience an intolerable cognitive dissonance of seeing the conspiracy theory that they thought would end up incriminating the people that they hate most in the world actually incriminating the guy they trust most in the world, and it's causing them a great amount of distress.
Well, Donald Trump hasn't been incriminated by this stuff.
Not by the not by the legalistic definition of incriminating, but it's incriminating as to, like, is he actually more tightly woven into that Jeffrey Epstein scandal than even his critics assumed he was? And I think the answer to that is yes.
Today on the show, why the Epstein scandal is not going anywhere, no matter what Donald Trump wants. I'm Mary Harris. You're listening to What Next? Stick around.
This episode is brought to you by Planned Parenthood Federation of America. The state of reproductive rights might feel bleak, but the fight isn't over. At Planned Parenthood, they're holding the line, no matter what. Whether it's birth control, wellness exams, abortion access, cancer screenings, gender-affirming care, or expanded telehealth, Planned Parenthood continues to provide care, even now. Some lawmakers are trying to end abortion access, slash funding people rely on for care, and shut down Planned Parenthood health centers. These attacks only deepen the healthcare crisis they created, putting millions at risk. But here's the truth. Planned Parenthood has been there for over a century because of supporters like you. Planned Parenthood believes everyone should have the freedom to make decisions about their own bodies, no matter what. And that's something worth fighting for. The future isn't something that just happens. It's something that can be shaped. Planned Parenthood needs you in this fight. Donate today to support Planned Parenthood at plannedparenthood.org/defend.
This podcast is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever think about switching insurance companies to see if you could save some cash? Progressive makes it easy. Just drop in some details about yourself and see if you're eligible to save money when you bundle your home and auto policies. The process only takes minutes, and it could mean hundreds more in your pocket. Visit Progressive.com after this episode to see if you could save. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states.
Can you just tell me a little bit about what Donald Trump and the people who are currently on his staff, what they were saying about the Epstein files going into Trump's second term?
So I would look to the people who are now top Trump officials, in law enforcement officials. Kash Patel is one. Head of the FBI, Deputy FBI Director Dan Bongino is another. Pam Bondi, who's Attorney General, is a third. And the influencers who kind of wanted to build the government that Trump ended up building, they were all adamant that in a second term, Trump would release all the Epstein files, the whole case file. The thing I can't shake are the appearances made where Trump himself was asked, what government secrets do you intend to release, that your supporters have wanted out? And he had no compunction about saying he would release the JFK assassination files. And I think he had no compunction about releasing Area 51 or UFO files, stuff like that. But then when he was asked, what about the Epstein files? He said, sure, well, maybe not so much.
A lot of it.
Would you declassify the Epstein files?
Yeah, I would.
All right.
I guess I would. I think that less so because, you don't know. You don't want to affect people's lives if it's phony stuff in there because there's a lot of phony stuff with that whole world. But I think I would, or at least
Do you think that would restore
Trump doesn't act that way when the potential victim of some kind of false smear is somebody he doesn't know or doesn't care about or who doesn't matter to him. It's only when it's him or maybe his family. And so the way he stopped short in this one Fox News interview I'm thinking of was a big, whoa, what's really there moment for me. And that was before the election.
That's interesting that you felt like you knew from the beginning he wouldn't go full Epstein files here. But I gotta say, we do not know he's in here. And we do not know, even if he is in here, that anything would be incriminating. What we do know is that someone like Senator Dick Durbin has alleged that hundreds of FBI agents were deployed to sift through the Epstein files this spring and flag anything related to Donald Trump. And again, this is an allegation, but if Donald Trump was in here, wouldn't we know by now? Like, these documents were in the possession of President Biden's administration for 4 years. Like, wouldn't those people have been spreading this around if they could?
So I think that it's important to be precise about what we mean when we ask the question, is Trump in the Epstein files? Because at the level of greatest generality, the answer is just yes, he is in the Epstein files. Like, prior to these last 2 weeks, enough information from the Jeffrey Epstein investigations was released by the government to verify that Trump, for instance, flew on Epstein's plane multiple times. So he is in the Epstein files insofar as some of the Epstein files came out in recent years and his name was kind of sprinkled throughout them, but not in any kind of accusatory context. There's no interview or documentation suggesting that he was present to witness a crime or that he committed a crime himself. So he is in the Epstein files.
And this is kind of the rub for Democrats. Democrats, they like to look for things where there's actually smoke, where there's actually fire, where there's something that's prosecutable, where there's something that can be acted upon. And I think it's unclear whether there's something that can be acted upon in these files having to do with Donald Trump.
Correct. So the knowing that he's in there, there are two outstanding questions. Is there more in there in these files about Donald Trump that has not yet been made public? And then beyond that, would any of that information be incriminating in the legal or prosecutable sense of the term? Merrick Garland really meant it when he talked about himself and his role as being highly norm bound, that he would restore integrity to the Justice Department after Trump had trampled over it so badly in his first term. And the proper thing for a prosecutor to do when there is evidence of wrongdoing, or at least evidence that might cause them to pry further, that you don't air that out in public unless you're ready to issue an indictment and charge that person with a crime.
Yeah. I mean, this tension we're talking about in Democrats, like Merrick Garland versus others in the party, you can see it right now playing out in elected officials. Like, I think you can see a couple different kinds of Democrats, maybe 3 different kinds of Democrats emerging at the moment in the wake of the Epstein file controversy blowing up. You see someone like Nancy Pelosi, erstwhile Speaker of the House, saying the Epstein files are a distraction.
This is a distraction. We have major issues right here with things we're voting on today in the Congress. Again, in terms of the rescission that the president and the Senate have sent back over us to cut all of these resources out of helping poor people throughout the world, to be America play its leadership role in soft power to keep us safe and to keep us healthy, so that viruses know no boundary. And instead, we're talking about this thing. And
then you have someone like Ron Wyden, who's been investigating Epstein for banking stuff for a long time. Kind of like all of a sudden it's like, oh, a spotlight on you.
Now, somewhere in the Treasury Department, Mr. President, locked away in a cabinet drawer is a big Epstein file that's full of actionable information. Follow the money details about his financing and operations that await investigation.
And then you have people like Ro Khanna and Jamie Raskin who are now going all in on Epstein, like, we got to get people testifying in front of us.
At this point, all the trials are over, and everything should be released to the public in the public interest, especially after Donald Trump, J.D. Vance, Dan Bongino, the FBI director, Kash Patel, and the Attorney General himself all stated that this was information of interest to the public, and everybody should be able to get a hold of it.
Is that what you're seeing too, the breakdown? Or are you seeing different sort of strands emerge?
I wouldn't change a word of what you just said. That's exactly how the Democratic Party has broken down on these questions over years, like how to go after Donald Trump corruption scandals. The leadership has always been really timid about them and wants to demonstrate that the party can, ignore the spectacle and the chaos and just focus on regular people's lives. Of course, that's not what regular people end up seeing because they're distracted themselves by the chaos and the scandals. And then there are workhorses like Ron Wyden who will attack these questions from a very legalistic vantage point. And then there are an increasing number of Democrats who understand that you really can't avoid getting down in the muck about this stuff. And people really do care. And so even if it feels kind of grimy, you got to use your power and your megaphones to shake loose all the information that you can about this stuff and hope that the public responds.
What can the Democrats do, though? Like, they are not in power right now. It seems to me, I look at their dilemma right now, and I think a lot relies on their ask, which I think has to be incredibly precise, because the Trump administration's response to them is going to be to flood the zone, right, with all kinds of things, contradictory things, information that doesn't matter, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And they really need to coalesce around one ask, whether it's like, I need Pam Bondi in front of me right now and I will not rest until this is done. Or maybe it's Ghislaine Maxwell, who was Jeffrey Epstein's pimp for a number of years, is currently in prison and is reportedly asking to testify in front of Congress. Like, I feel like they need to coalesce around one ask that they won't let go of, because otherwise they're going to be drowned in a tsunami of misinformation and blather.
So I think that's right, but I think that the ask can be pretty capacious. It can be the entire Epstein case file with victim names redacted or something like that. The Ghislaine Maxwell dangle seems to me to be something that Republicans are interested in. And my assumption about that is that they would like to see her come forward, testify under oath that Donald Trump did nothing wrong, say, see, case closed, we went right to the source. Meanwhile, she's a very compromised person. She is in the DOJ crosshairs. She can, in theory, get out of prison if Donald Trump commuted her sentence or pardoned her. And so she has, I think, a motive to play ball with the Republicans, not with the Democrats. So if I were a Democrat like Jamie Raskin, I would be pretty wary of her involvement in the fact finding going forward. House Democrats have been quite good on this in the last week. I would like to see the Senate Democrats use a little bit more of their power to try to shake some information loose. In the Senate, members have more power in the minority than minority members in the House do. And a lot of that stems from the fact that making the Senate work well requires a degree of cooperation from the minority. And so the more of that cooperation Democrats withhold, the harder the Senate is for Republicans to run in a normal way. And Democrats can effectively say, we're going to grind this place to a halt unless you agree to haul Pam Bondi in for testimony or subpoena the complete Epstein case file. You know, they need to pick their demand.
We'll be right back after a quick break.
This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. Between two-factor authentication, strong passwords, and a VPN, you try to be in control of how your info is protected. But many other places also have it, and they might not be as careful. That's why LifeLock monitors hundreds of millions of data points a second for threats. If your identity is stolen, they'll fix it, guaranteed, or your money back. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit LifeLock.com/podcast for 40% off. Terms apply.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold!
Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. New customer offer for first 3 months only. Speed slow after 35 gigabytes if network's busy. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.
Hi, it's Willa Paskin, the host of Decoder Ring, a show about cracking cultural mysteries. And we have a new episode all about a tremendously popular kind of noise. White noise.
I do not like silence. My wife is always like, can we just enjoy some, 30 seconds of silence in the car? I'm like, no, noise, always something.
People are using white noise and ocean waves and crickets chirping and frying bacon to quiet the sounds of the world around them. And all these options made us curious. Why are there so many of them?
White noise podcasts are reportedly costing Spotify millions of dollars each year.
Who's making them?
I wanted to provide beautiful noises because noise can be beautiful.
And are they any good for us?
It's got me a little bit worried that we're throwing the baby out with the bathwater.
Find out now on Slate's Decoder Ring, wherever you get your podcasts.
On Friday, the Wall Street Journal threw one more twist into this MAGA versus MAGA debacle. According to their reporters, Epstein's business partner, Ghislaine Maxwell, prepared a special present for him on his 50th birthday, a leather-bound book of bawdy birthday greetings, including one from Donald Trump. The letter features the outline of a naked woman with the president's signature, mimicking her pubic hair. It concludes, "Happy birthday, and may every day be another wonderful secret." Trump has already railed against this story. He's suing the paper and its owners, saying he never wrote a picture in his life. And then he kicked the Journal's reporters out of the press pool, covering an upcoming trip to Scotland. But in a way, this story did him a favor, because all of a sudden, these MAGA influencers who had turned against him, they were back on his side. Laura Loomer, Steve Bannon, Charlie Kirk, they are all now defending Trump against the quote-unquote fake news media. By Monday morning, the New York Times was leading with a piece about how Trump had deflected his party's wrath over Epstein. But Brian says it's too soon to say this is all over.
So it's kind of hard to know what's going to happen, but I do think that MAGA world has this tendency to try to adopt a posture of aggression and of being on the front foot. And like that, we've turned the tables. Now we're in a stronger position and you're in a weaker position. And that we shouldn't necessarily view that as being done in earnest. It's done a kind of like as a mind trick to Donald Trump's opponents to kind of assume that this is all futile, or that, pressing farther in this direction will actually backfire in some sense. But if the physical letter that was described in the Wall Street Journal story drops, and it's very hard for people who see it to dispute that Donald Trump wrote it.
A big if, but it could.
It absolutely could. And, I think back on scandals as they unfolded in the pre-Trump era. And that if you parachuted into the Watergate era on any given day, you might not know that there was a big scandal brewing involving the president, or the coverage of it on that day or in that week might have led you to believe that Richard Nixon was on the front foot and that he was beating back these scurrilous accusations of wrongdoing, and that these stories in the moment have a kind of ebb and flow to them. And that, people like Charlie Kirk, putting on a strong face and saying, we're getting the president's back on this Wall Street Journal story.
After absolutely attacking Donald Trump over Epstein in the last week. So it was a real turnabout.
Yes. That in the moment that can feel like a reversal, but that it's also quite possible that it's a feint, and that a week from now, things are going to look worse for Trump than they did even just a few days ago. So when these MAGA, create some sort of reason for everybody to rally back around Trump. We've seen that happen dozens and dozens of times since 2015. I don't necessarily view that as like a reason to say, well, this story's over. Time to turn the page back to healthcare or whatever Nancy Pelosi would do. Is that like there is with Trump almost always more to the story. And if you just keep at it, you will learn things that are pretty derogatory toward him because he's a bad actor who does bad things a lot.
Yeah, I think you're saying the Democrats or journalists or whoever, they're going to make the road by walking. But
Yes.
The issue is they have to keep walking.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a decision to keep walking. But another thing that happened with this Wall Street Journal release is it did compel Donald Trump to act. It seemed to, at least, because on Friday he said he and AG Pam Bondi said they were going to ask a judge to unseal grand jury testimony against Jeffrey Epstein, which seems like such a classic Trumpian move to me because it's going to release a ton of information theoretically if it happens. But none of it will have anything to do with Donald J. Trump because the prosecution was not about him. So it's unlikely to do something that harms him. You know what I mean? And so it's important to like not take that bait or like keep going in spite of something like that. And that's a choice.
One advantage Democrats do have in these fights is that they have a lot of smart lawyers in the party and they know how the grand jury process works. And they know enough about the evidence in a criminal investigation to know that when Donald Trump says we're going to get the grand jury testimony released or we're going to ask a court to release it, that is a red herring. The jewels, if there are any, are in the full case file that the DOJ and the FBI control, where they do interviews of witnesses and where they collect physical evidence and documents and computer files, right? That's if there's more information about Trump out there, it's in those files, not in the grand jury testimony. And I'm not actually sure it's going to be that much information if it ever comes out, because when prosecutors impanel grand juries, it's to return an indictment on the narrowest grounds that they know that they're very confident that they can achieve a conviction on. So I think that if the grand jury testimony becomes public, it's actually not going to be a very impressive volume of documents.
Do you ever worry that the Epstein files open up this Pandora's box? And I ask that because Donald Trump didn't reach power by taking conspiratorial thinking seriously. He reached power by sort of parroting the conspiratorial thinking back at people. Like deliverables didn't matter. It's basically a hunger that will never be satisfied. And I think Democrats, people talk about them a lot as like being good little girls at the front of the classroom, girls and boys. You're never gonna satisfy the beast here. And if you go hard at this, you may end up finding yourself carrying around a whole lot of nothing at the end of the day.
So if the goal were to purge conspiratorialism from American political discourse, I kind of agree with you that even if you have Donald Trump dead to rights on this story, and even if you actually like cause the bottom to fall out of his base of support as a result of it, which is, you know, the best possible outcome you can imagine, right? That's not going to change certain fundamental things about how people get information today and how information is packaged to them, such that American politics will be this conspiratorial free zone and will return to a pre-internet era where there was at least some factual basis to the debates we had about politics day in, day out. But I do think that there is unresolved tension here in this specific story. I don't see how it goes away without something giving, right? Because that formulation that a lot of Democrats have landed on in the last few days, like, were you lying about a pedophilia scandal to get your guy elected, knowing that it was false, or are you engaged in a cover-up now? Until that question gets answered, I don't see how this story goes away. And as long as the story is prominent in the news and in the political discourse, it's going to be harmful for Trump because he is, no matter what the story is, he's not innocent in it. And so Democrats, I think, can be pretty fearless about charging ahead on this story without deluding themselves into thinking that if they play all their cards right here and the information that comes to light is really damning for Trump, that it'll herald like a new dawn of rationality in American politics. I don't see that happening. Not in 2025 when most people get their information from people who aren't professional journalists, from social media algorithms, many of which are tilted to be right-leaning and conspiratorial on purpose. I think we're going to be dealing with that problem well beyond the Trump years.
Brian, I'm really grateful for your time. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Brian Beutler is a politics writer. His Substack is called Off Message. Go check it out. I'm a subscriber. It's worth it. His podcast is called Politix. That's with an X at the end. And that's the show. What Next is produced by Paige Osburn, Elena Schwartz, Rob Gunther, Madeline Ducharme, Ethan Oberman, and Anna Phillips. Ben Richmond is the Senior Director of Podcast Operations here at Slate. And I'm Mary Harris. Go say hey on Blue Sky if you want. I'm at Mary Harris. Thanks for listening. Catch you back here next time.